Welcome to episode 3. We got some issues with this bike we're going to deal with this time. Our first deal here is the transmission case is a little narrower than the mounts. As you can see, it moves around in the frame. It's cracked this boss, but it's cracked it about a fourth of the way around, so we've still got bearing surface, and this isn't ready to come loose, so we're just going to put a shim in there and run this as it is. Here's our 30 or 40-year-old repair on our center stand. Obviously this is not acceptable. It's pretty ugly looking stuff besides, so we'll fix this up. Cut this apart. Here's our shoulder bolts. One of these had been turned down and threaded with a different thread and nutted on the back, and then the other one is the threads are just pretty shot, plus the heads are all chewed up, so and the shanks are worn. So we've got a couple shoulder bolts from another bike that we'll use. They have a bigger head, but they'll work just fine to make some new shoulder bolts with. Now this is our stand cut apart. We've got this 1/2 here, and we'll try to match this piece here to that one, which we'll do with our little pocket grinder. We'll just go around and grind this end up, and then we'll cut this end off and weld another piece in the middle there to take out all that bodge repair. This is some more just filling cracks and crevices and welding up the heel of this a little bit so it matches the other one. They're not fully dressed here, but they're pretty close, so we'll do a little bit more work on them. And we're going to do our shoulder bolts. We'll put them in the lathe and just true them in the 3-jaw chuck, and then we'll put a center hole on the end of it and run a live center on these bolts to machine this shoulder. And we'll go in there and just with a number 3 center drill and put a nice center in there. Pull this back, put our live center in. Run that in, leave a little overhang on the tailstock, so we got room to move the carriage around. Lock that down, put a nice left-hand facing tool in there. We'll measure our original shoulder bolt and get that shoulder dimension. Take our calipers and we'll just run our tool up within about 10 or 15 thousandths of that. And then we'll just put a witness mark in our part, and that'll give us a place to go and stop to. Put a nice little mark there, come back, touch off on this, and we'll make a couple 3 cuts on this and get it down close to our final dimension. This is a 3/8 Whitworth thread, which is 24 threads per inch. It's the same as an American, so we can use the American die and tap on this. The only difference between those 2 threads is the 55-degree Whitworth thread form, and it's also got a rounded root and top on it, so it's all intents and purposes it's the same thing. Now we'll get our shoulder dimension same. We'll take a little bit more off of that, get that nice back to dimension what we want, and then we'll check our diameter again and take a few more thou off of that. And we're good to go. I usually cut these about 5 or 10 thou undersize nominal of the threads I'm going to cut. It seems to do a little better job of threading. It's a little easier to thread that way. You don't seem to tear the tops of the threads so much. And then also I use rapid tap on these dies. Rapid tap is something that you can get in the industrial supply houses. It really makes a nice thread. You see nice shiny threads on these finished parts, and that's the work of rapid tap. That stuff's amazing. I highly recommend it if you're going to do any kind of threading. If you want professional results, that's what you need to use. Put a little dibble of that on there. It doesn't take a whole lot. I give it a couple of spins on the lathe, then I'll take it over to the vise and finish threading it on. This gives a nice straight start to the thread. I'm running the die down on there with the taper end first, just to make it easier to start. Then I'll flip it over and use the other side of the die, which will run it right down to the shoulder. We'll get threads right to the shoulder. And we'll put this back in the lathe with that extra little piece of threading we had on the end to hold in the chuck, and we'll just part this off to our finished length plus a few thou, and we'll turn it around again, use our little brass protector around the head so we don't chew up the head from the chuck, and file off the end, and then we'll radius the end of it so it's like the original parts. It makes them look real nice. And then I usually chase these with a die again just to make sure we don't have any burrs on there. And there you go. There's your piece. We'll make another one just like it. So I've taken the frame and we're setting it up here in a vise, just kind of plumb it, and then we'll take our pieces of cleaned up center stand and we'll put them on the frame, bolt them with the shoulder bolts. And we just want to make sure that we have the stops all even and everything's nice and level when we put it together, so visually it looks good from the back. And there's our finished stand all welded up. These little stops here, but one of these had to be dressed up because the stand wasn't touching it the same. Here's our finished part. And thanks for joining us. Hope to see you next time.